From a 9-year-old future sitcom star making her debut to typos in the credits that became permanent movie history, this cyberpunk thriller starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe hides secrets stranger than its silicon-regenerating villain. Behind the nanotechnology and virtual reality lies a collection of bizarre production stories, unexpected casting choices, and continuity errors that make this 1,995 sci-fi oddity even more fascinating. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Virtuosity. Fact 1. Kaley Cuoco's film debut at age 9. Long before she became the beloved Penny on The Big Bang Theory, Kaley Cuoco made her very first movie appearance in Virtuosity as a 9-year-old child actress. This 1995 science fiction thriller starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe marked the beginning of what would become a hugely successful television career. Though at the time, nobody could have predicted that this young girl would eventually become one of the highest-paid actresses on television. In the film, Cuoco plays Karen Carter, the daughter of criminal psychologist Madison Carter, who is portrayed by Kelly Lynch. Her character becomes a crucial plot point when the villainous artificial intelligence known as SIED 6.7, played by Russell Crowe, kidnaps her and uses her as leverage against the protagonists. While her role was relatively small, requiring her to portray a frightened child in distress, Cuoco's performance was natural and convincing for such a young actress, making her debut in a major Hollywood production. What makes this casting even more interesting is that Cuoco had already begun acting before Virtuosity, appearing in television commercials from the age of 6. But this was her first significant role in a feature film. The movie was produced with a $30 million budget and featured 2 future Academy Award winners, making it quite an impressive debut for any child actor. After Virtuosity, Cuoco continued working steadily in television, eventually landing her breakthrough role as Bridget Hennessy on the ABC sitcom 8 Simple Rules in 2002. From there, she went on to star as Penny on The Big Bang Theory for 12 seasons, earning millions per episode and becoming a household name. Looking back, her brief appearance in this cyberpunk action film represents the humble beginning of one of television's most successful comedy careers, proving that even the biggest stars often start with the smallest roles. Fact 2. Denzel blocked an interracial kiss scene. According to actress Kelly Lynch, who played criminal psychologist Madison Carter in Virtuosity, she and Denzel Washington were originally scripted to share a romantic kiss during the film, but Washington made the decision to have the scene completely removed from the final version. Lynch revealed in interviews that Washington was concerned about how an interracial romantic moment between their characters might negatively impact the movie's box office performance, leading him to request that the kiss be cut entirely. This decision reflects the complicated realities of Hollywood in the mid-1990s, when studios and actors still worried about audience reactions to interracial relationships on screen. At the time, Washington was establishing himself as a major leading man following his Academy Award win for Glory in 1989 and his nomination for Malcolm X in 1992, making him particularly conscious of how his career choices might affect his marketability to mainstream audiences. In the final version of Virtuosity, Washington's character Parker Barnes and Lynch's character Madison Carter maintain a professional relationship as they work together to stop the artificial intelligence villain SIED 6.7. Their interactions remain focused on the mission at hand, with any romantic tension completely absent from their scenes together. The chemistry between the characters is limited to mutual respect and shared determination to save Carter's kidnapped daughter. Lynch's revelation about the removed kiss scene provides insight into the behind-the-scenes decisions that shaped the final film, showing how concerns about audience reception could influence creative choices, even in a science fiction action movie where romance was not the primary focus. This kind of self-censorship was not uncommon during this period in Hollywood history when interracial relationships were still considered risky territory for major studio releases, despite changing social attitudes in American society. Fact 3. Credits contain a permanent typo. At the end of Virtuosity, when the credits roll and the producers thank various technology companies for providing tools used in the film's production, eagle-eyed viewers can spot a glaring spelling error that has become a permanent part of movie history. The credits mistakenly list HSC Cal's Power Tools instead of the correct name Kai's Power Tools, creating a typo that would normally be easily corrected in post-production but somehow made it into the final theatrical release. Kai's Power Tools was a popular suite of digital imaging software plugins developed by Crowe for Adobe Photoshop and other graphics programs during the 1990s. These tools were widely used by digital artists and special effects teams for creating various visual effects, making them exactly the kind of software that would have been essential for a science fiction film like Virtuosity with its virtual reality sequences and computer-generated imagery. What makes this typo particularly fascinating is that it wasn't just a momentary mistake that disappeared after the film's release. The error became permanently archived in Turner Classic Movies' official database, where it remains documented to this day as part of the film's official production credits. This means that anyone researching the movie through TCM's comprehensive film database will encounter this misspelling as if it were the actual name of the software company. The mistake demonstrates how even major studio productions with substantial budgets can overlook seemingly simple details during the final stages of post-production. In an era before digital distribution made it easier to correct errors after release, once a film was printed and distributed to theaters, any mistakes in the credits became part of the permanent record. This particular typo serves as a reminder that even Hollywood blockbusters are created by human beings who sometimes make very human errors that end up preserved for posterity. Fact 4. Star Trek reference hidden in plain sight. During one scene in Virtuosity, viewers can briefly glimpse a Star Trek episode playing on a television screen. But this wasn't just a random choice by the filmmakers. The specific episode shown is The Enemy Within from the original Star Trek series, which originally aired in 1966 and tells the story of Captain Kirk being accidentally split into two separate beings by a malfunctioning transporter. One version of Kirk represents his compassionate, rational side, while the other embodies his aggressive, primal instincts, creating a fascinating exploration of human duality. This choice creates a brilliant thematic parallel with Virtuosity's central villain, Sid 6.7, who is himself a combination of opposing forces and multiple personalities. SID is programmed with the digital minds of over 150 of history's most notorious criminals and killers, including serial murderers, dictators, and terrorists, making him an artificial being torn between different violent impulses and criminal methodologies. Just as Kirk struggles with his split nature in the Star Trek episode, SID represents the ultimate expression of humanity's capacity for evil, all contained within a single artificial consciousness. The filmmakers could have chosen any television show or movie to appear on that screen. But selecting The Enemy Within demonstrates a level of thoughtful detail that many viewers would miss on first viewing. This kind of subtle reference shows how science fiction creators often pay homage to the works that inspired them, using small visual cues to connect their stories to the broader tradition of exploring human nature through futuristic scenarios. The parallel becomes even more striking when considering that both stories deal with technology gone wrong and the consequences of splitting or combining different aspects of personality, whether through transporter accidents or artificial intelligence programming designed to create the perfect criminal mind. Fact 5. Filmed at Howard Hughes's abandoned aircraft plant, Several major scenes in Virtuosity were filmed at the massive abandoned Hughes Aircraft Company facility in Los Angeles, giving the movie's futuristic laboratory sequences an authentically industrial and somewhat eerie atmosphere. This sprawling complex, which had been empty for years by the time filming began in early 1995, provided the perfect backdrop for a science fiction thriller about cutting-edge technology and virtual reality experiments gone wrong. The Hughes aircraft plant was originally built by the legendary aviation pioneer and billionaire Howard Hughes, who founded the company in 1934 as part of his ambitious aerospace ventures. During World War II and the following decades, this facility was home to groundbreaking aircraft development, including work on military planes, satellites, and advanced aerospace technology. By the 1990s, however, much of the complex had been abandoned, leaving behind enormous hangars and industrial spaces that were ideal for movie production. The filmmakers took advantage of the plant's authentic high-tech industrial design, with its soaring ceilings, metal framework, and sterile concrete surfaces that perfectly matched the movie's vision of a government research facility. The abandoned nature of the location added an extra layer of atmosphere to scenes involving the Law Enforcement Technology Advancement Center, where the dangerous SID 6.7 program was developed and where much of the film's action takes place. Using a real former aerospace facility rather than building sets from scratch gave Virtuosity a sense of scale and authenticity that would have been difficult and expensive to recreate on a soundstage. The cavernous spaces and industrial architecture of the Hughes plant provided a convincing environment for the high-stakes technological thriller, while the location's history of actual cutting-edge research made it thematically appropriate for a story about advanced artificial intelligence and virtual reality technology. Fact 6. Russell Crowe's glass-eating villain, Regeneration. One of the most memorable and bizarre aspects of Russell Crowe's performance as Sid 6.7 involves his character's ability to regenerate damaged body parts by consuming glass, a concept that required Crowe to convincingly simulate eating actual glass shards on camera. The film's premise establishes that SID's android body is constructed using advanced nanotechnology that can rebuild itself using silicon-based materials, and since glass is primarily made of silicon dioxide, it serves as the perfect raw material for his self-repair process. Throughout the movie, viewers witness several disturbing scenes where SID calmly eats pieces of broken glass to heal wounds inflicted by gunshots or other injuries. After being shot multiple times or having limbs damaged, Crowe's character methodically picks up glass fragments and appears to consume them, with the nanotechnology in his artificial body supposedly breaking down the silicon to reconstruct missing tissue and bone. The visual effect creates an unsettling image that emphasizes SID's inhuman nature, while demonstrating the advanced technology that makes him nearly indestructible. For Crowe, these scenes presented a unique acting challenge that required him to make the impossible seem believable and genuinely threatening. The actor had to convey both the mechanical precision of an artificial intelligence and the casual brutality of a psychopathic killer, all while pretending to consume what would obviously be deadly to any real person. The glass-eating sequences became some of the film's most memorable moments, showcasing SID's alien nature and his complete disregard for normal human limitations. The concept reflects the mid-1990s fascination with nanotechnology and its potential applications, presenting audiences with a villain who could theoretically rebuild himself indefinitely as long as he had access to the basic materials needed for his silicon-based construction. Fact 7. Director rejected cybersex-heavy VR scripts. After the success of The Lawnmower Man in 1992, director Brett Leonard found himself inundated with virtual reality-themed movie scripts from studios eager to capitalize on the growing interest in computer technology and digital worlds. However, Leonard made the surprising decision to reject numerous projects because he felt they were overly reliant upon cybersex and didn't believe that sexual content alone could sustain an entire feature film's worth of storytelling. The Lawnmower Man had established Leonard as Hollywood's go-to director for virtual reality movies, making him the obvious choice for studios developing scripts that featured digital environments and computer-generated worlds. During the early 1990s, the concept of virtual reality was still relatively new to mainstream audiences, and many screenwriters seemed to focus primarily on the technology's potential for creating fantasy sexual experiences, rather than exploring broader themes about artificial intelligence, technology's impact on society, or the philosophical implications of digital consciousness. Leonard's concerns about these scripts reflected his desire to create more substantial science fiction films that used virtual reality as a storytelling tool rather than simply as a backdrop for adult content. When he eventually chose to direct Virtuosity, he was specifically attracted to the screenplay because it focused on advanced concepts like nanotechnology and artificial intelligence rather than relying heavily on virtual reality as its primary gimmick. The director wanted to explore action-oriented themes and examine how cutting-edge technology could be used to create new forms of entertainment and law enforcement training, rather than limiting the story to the more sensational aspects of virtual worlds. This creative decision ultimately led to a film that combined traditional action movie elements with futuristic concepts, allowing Leonard to expand beyond the virtual reality niche while still incorporating the technological themes that had made The Lawnmower Man successful. Fact 8. Tracy Lord's music video shot during production. Tracy Lords, the former adult film star who had successfully transitioned into mainstream acting and music by the mid-1990s, appears in Virtuosity as the Media Zone singer in what seems like a small cameo role, but her involvement with the film extended far beyond her brief on-screen appearance. Lords was simultaneously working on her debut music album, 1000 Fires, for Radioactive Records, and she managed to coordinate the filming of her music video for the song Fallen Angel during the actual production of Virtuosity, using the movie's elaborate nightclub sets. The Media Zone sequence in the film takes place at a futuristic nightclub where SID 6.7 takes hostages and creates a terrifying spectacle for television audiences. This location provided the perfect backdrop for Lord's music video, which featured her performing in a skin-tight latex outfit while surrounded by the same high-tech club atmosphere that appears in the movie. The video utilized heavy infrared effects and showed Lords dancing at what appears to be an underground rave, with multiple camera operators filming her performance and projecting her image on screens throughout the venue. This arrangement benefited both the film and Lords' music career, as the movie gained additional authenticity in its nightclub scenes, while Lords obtained professional quality video production without the expense of building separate sets. The Paul Oakenfold remix of Fallen Angel was subsequently included on the Virtuosity soundtrack album, which was released on Radioactive Records alongside tracks by Peter Gabriel, Tricky, and other notable artists of the era. Lords was signed to Radioactive Records at the time, the same label that released the Virtuosity soundtrack, making this cross-promotion a natural business decision that allowed her to maximize her exposure during her transition from adult entertainment to legitimate entertainment industry work. Fact 9. SID 6.7's name almost references. 666 Russell Crowe's artificial intelligence villain carries the designation SID 6.7, and multiple film reviewers and moviegoers quickly noticed that this numerical identifier bears a striking resemblance to 666, the biblical number associated with the devil and the apocalypse. The similarity between 6.7 and 6.66 seemed too close to be purely coincidental, leading many to speculate that the filmmakers deliberately chose this name to give their villains subtle demonic undertones. The acronym SID officially stands for Sadistic, Intelligent, Dangerous, which perfectly describes the character's personality and capabilities as a virtual amalgamation of history's worst criminals and killers. However, the addition of the version number 6.7 creates an almost supernatural quality to the character's identity, suggesting that this artificial being represents something beyond ordinary criminal behavior and enters the realm of pure evil. In Christian theology and popular culture, the number 666 has long been interpreted as the mark of the beast or the Antichrist, making any numerical reference close to this figure immediately recognizable to audiences familiar with religious symbolism. Whether the filmmakers intended this connection or not, the choice of 6.7 as SID's version number adds an extra layer of menace to an already terrifying character who embodies the absolute worst aspects of human nature. Contemporary movie reviewers specifically commented on this numerical coincidence, with several noting that the similarity seemed deliberate given the character's role as a seemingly unstoppable force of destruction and chaos. The filmmakers themselves never officially confirmed whether this was an intentional reference to the biblical number of the beast, leaving audiences to draw their own conclusions about whether SID 6.7 was meant to represent a technological version of ultimate evil. Fact 10. Visible stunt wire during rooftop fight. During the climactic rooftop battle between Denzel Washington's Parker Barnes and Russell Crowe's SID 6.7, eagle-eyed viewers can spot a major production error that somehow made it past the editing process and into the final theatrical release. When Sid lifts Parker over his head and throws him off the roof in what should be a demonstration of the android's superhuman strength, you can clearly see a hook and rope system that's actually doing the lifting, completely breaking the illusion of the scene. This type of mistake is particularly embarrassing for an action movie because it reveals the behind-the-scenes machinery that audiences are supposed to forget about while watching. The wire work and rigging equipment that allows stunt performers to safely execute dangerous sequences is normally hidden through careful camera angles, digital effects, or post-production editing. But in this case, the safety equipment remains clearly visible in the shot. The error occurs during one of the film's most intense moments, when the two main characters are engaged in their final confrontation high above the city streets. The scene is meant to showcase SID's artificial strength and Parker's determination to stop the murderous android. But instead it draws attention to the practical realities of movie making and the safety precautions required to protect actors during dangerous stunts. What makes this mistake even more noticeable is that it happens during a key, dramatic moment, rather than a quick action sequence where viewers might be too distracted to notice such details. The visible rigging equipment serves as an unintentional reminder that even big-budget Hollywood productions with experienced stunt coordinators can sometimes overlook obvious technical problems that undermine the movie's carefully constructed fictional world. Fact 11. Continuity error with tracking device placement. One of the most glaring continuity mistakes in Virtuosity involves the placement of the tracking device that government officials inject into Denzel Washington's character Parker Barnes to monitor his location during his mission to capture SID 6.7. In the initial injection scene, viewers clearly see the needle being inserted behind Barnes' left ear, with medical personnel carefully positioning the device in that specific location for what appears to be a routine procedure. However, in subsequent scenes throughout the film, the small bandage that marks the injection site mysteriously relocates to the side of Barnes's neck, several inches away from where the tracking device was originally implanted. This error becomes particularly noticeable because the bandage serves as a visual reminder of the government's control over Barnes and their ability to terminate him remotely if he fails to complete his mission or attempts to escape. The mistake suggests that different scenes were filmed on separate days or possibly out of sequence, with makeup artists and continuity supervisors failing to maintain consistent placement of the prop bandage. In professional film production, continuity personnel are specifically responsible for tracking these types of details to ensure that props, costumes, and makeup remain consistent between shots. But somehow this obvious error slipped through the review process. The tracking device and its associated bandage play an important role in the film's plot, as they represent the leverage that government officials hold over Barnes and create additional tension about whether he can complete his mission before the authorities decide to eliminate him. The visible inconsistency in the bandage placement draws unwanted attention to the production process, rather than allowing audiences to focus on the story's dramatic elements and the dangerous cat-and-mouse game between Barnes and the artificial intelligence villain. Fact 12. Sid's hand regeneration blooper. During one of the film's action sequences at a fighting arena, Sid 6.7 has his hand completely blown off by a security guard's shotgun blast, creating a dramatic moment that demonstrates both the android's vulnerability to heavy weapons and his ability to survive severe injuries. The scene shows the artificial hand being destroyed in graphic detail, leaving Russell Crowe's character with what should be a missing appendage that would require time and glass consumption to regenerate, according to the film's established rules about his nanotechnology-based healing abilities. However, immediately after this injury occurs, Sid spots Parker Barnes in the crowd and decides to escape from the fighting ring by jumping over a chain-link fence. In what became one of the film's most obvious continuity errors, viewers can clearly see Russell Crowe using both hands to help, to himself vault over the fence, including the hand that was just blown off moments earlier. The supposedly missing hand is clearly visible and functional as Crowe grabs the fence with both hands to pull himself over during his escape. This mistake reveals the practical challenges of maintaining continuity during action sequences that involve special effects and prosthetics. The scene was likely filmed in multiple takes or possibly on different days, with the crew apparently forgetting to ensure that Crowe continued to act as if his character was missing a hand throughout the entire escape sequence. The error becomes particularly noticeable because Sid's regenerative abilities are such an important part of his character's threat level, and the audience has just witnessed the dramatic destruction of his hand. Instead of reinforcing his inhuman nature and technological superiority, the blooper accidentally reminds viewers that they're watching an actor performing stunts rather than an unstoppable artificial intelligence with supernatural healing powers. Fact 13. Serial killer personalities include real criminals. The filmmakers made the disturbing decision to base Sid 6.7's artificial personality on the actual psychological profiles of real-world criminals and killers, creating a virtual entity that combines the worst traits of history's most notorious figures. During scenes where Sid's programming is displayed on computer screens, viewers can glimpse an extensive list of names that includes genuinely terrifying individuals, like cult leader David Koresh, serial killer Charles Manson, female serial killer Eileen Wuornos, and even Adolf Hitler, among many others. This approach gives Sid a horrifying authenticity that goes beyond typical movie villains, as his behavior patterns are supposedly derived from studying the actual methods, motivations, and psychological profiles of people who committed real atrocities. The artificial intelligence doesn't just act evil in a generic sense, but instead demonstrates specific criminal techniques and psychological manipulation tactics that were actually used by these historical figures to harm and control their victims. The list of criminals whose personalities were fed into Sid's programming includes a wide range of killers spanning different time periods and criminal specialties, from mass murderers and dictators to serial killers and cult leaders. Names visible in the computer displays include Thomas McIlvaine, Frederick Cowan, William Bonin, Harvey Glattman, Peter Kooten, William Brian Cruz, Charles Whitmore, Peter Sutcliffe, Kenneth McDuff, Jesse James, and Dr. Glennon Engelman, among others. This creative choice adds a layer of real-world horror to the science fiction premise, suggesting that SID represents not just a technological threat, but also a concentrated embodiment of actual human evil throughout history. The artificial intelligence becomes a repository for the collective knowledge of how to cause maximum psychological and physical harm, making him a uniquely terrifying antagonist who draws his methods from documented criminal behavior rather than fictional villainy. Fact 14. Film predicted Matrix style. VR, 4 years early Virtuosity, featured virtual reality sequences that remarkably anticipated the visual style and fighting choreography that would later make The Matrix famous, essentially predicting the cyberpunk renaissance that would dominate science fiction cinema in the late 1990s. The film's VR training sequences showed characters moving through computer-generated environments with enhanced physical abilities, engaging in combat that defied normal physics and gravity in ways that closely resembled what audiences would see 4 years later in the Wachowski sisters' groundbreaking film. The virtual reality segments in Virtuosity included wire-assisted fighting sequences where characters could perform impossible acrobatic moves and martial arts techniques that would have been deadly or physically impossible in the real world. These scenes featured the same kind of slow-motion bullet time effects and gravity-defying combat choreography that would become The Matrix's signature visual elements, though Virtuosity's execution was less polished and relied more heavily on obvious special effects. Brett Leonard's direction incorporated many of the visual concepts that would later define the cyberpunk genre's return to mainstream popularity, including the idea that virtual environments could allow humans to transcend normal physical limitations and engage in combat that blended Eastern martial arts with Western action movie sensibilities. The film's depiction of virtual reality as a place where the rules of physics could be bent or broken would become a standard element in later cyberpunk films. Multiple contemporary reviewers noted that viewers who later watched The Matrix might experience a sense of familiarity with certain visual elements, particularly the VR training sequences where characters learn to fight in computer-generated environments. While Virtuosity never achieved the cultural impact or technical sophistication of The Matrix, it served as an important stepping stone in the evolution of how Hollywood depicted virtual reality and digital worlds on screen. Fact 15. Christopher Young's score had 24-year release delay. While the Virtuosity soundtrack album released in 1995 on Radioactive Records featured popular artists like Peter Gabriel, Tracy Lords, Tricky, and Live, fans of film music had to wait an astonishing 24 years before they could officially own the complete orchestral score composed by Christopher Young. The original soundtrack release focused entirely on contemporary rock and electronic music that would appeal to mainstream audiences, completely omitting Young's instrumental compositions that provided the dramatic backbone for the film's action sequences and emotional moments. Christopher Young was hired by producer Gary Luke Casey, who had previously worked with the composer on the thriller Jennifer 8, and Young created a complex musical foundation that blended electronic influences with traditional orchestral arrangements. The score was specifically designed to reflect the film's themes about technology and artificial intelligence, with much of the music featuring electronic elements during the first two-thirds of the movie before transitioning to full orchestral arrangements for the climactic final act. Despite Young's reputation as a respected film composer who would go on to score major films like Hellraiser and Spider-Man 3, his work on Virtuosity remained unreleased in any official capacity for more than 2 decades. Only a promotional CD had been made available to industry professionals and collectors, making the complete score essentially unavailable to general audiences who wanted to experience Young's musical interpretation of the cyberpunk thriller. The situation was finally resolved on July 26, 2019, when Intrada Records released the complete score as part of their specialty label, focusing on previously unreleased film music. This release allowed film music enthusiasts to finally hear Young's full contribution to Virtuosity, including cues and themes that had been edited or removed from the theatrical version, providing a more complete picture of the composer's work on this unique science fiction project.